It's parking committee meeting October 8th at 6:08. I'm Sheila Vaccaro with Lisa Dorsey and Bernie Flynn. And after calling it to order, are there any announcements? Seeing none, I'm just going to move a new business A up ahead so that John O'Brien can speak to us and his son can come and visit.
Good evening, John O'Brien, Executive Director, Downtown Westchester, and this is Finn. I'm here tonight for our annual appeal to council as part of Small Business Weekend. We ask for free parking on the street level metered parking for both the Friday after Thanksgiving and for Small Business Saturday in support of the whole Small Business Weekend that we do. This is one of the most critical weekends for our retail sector in town. This is really where they make the bulk of their money, is in the holiday season. As we all know, parking is always kind of a tough nut to crack here in the borough, and trying to advertise to come to Westchester. If people have perceptions around parking, this is a little added gift that we can kind of say that there's free parking there. It usually attracts more people who want to come in, shop small, instead of going to the big box stores or shopping online.
I am all in favor for this.
You said a street only, correct?
Right, it's not the garage, it's just the street level.
That's fine. Yep,
Yeah,
great.
and not the surface lots. It's just the metered parking on the streets is what we've requested. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Makes it easier.
Are there any comments, suggestions, or petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we can move on to the garage management report.
Good evening. How are you? Joe Mallon in Park. I wanted to go over the report. So in looking at, we'll look at Bicentennial Garage first. For September, transient was 56,237 with a budget of 53,000, positive 3,237. Better number though is over prior year of $4,200.16, that's a good increase. Year to date on transient of 472,421 on a budget of 442. Again, positive $30,000 to budget. But again, over last year, that's a better number, I think, of 18,064 over last year. So that's what really matters. Monthly, 36,700 on a budget of 40,000, down 3,300 to budget, down $2,000 over last year. Year to date, 328,060 on a budget of 350. Negative 21,940 and negative 11,989, and that is for monthly. Did pretty well with the special event, 3910 over a budget of 3,500. We don't have prior last year numbers there to account for, but for the special event, that's a positive number. If you look at the Chestnut Garage, transient 49,563 and a budget of 42,000 over budget of 7,500. Did take a downturn of 2945 over last year. Not sure why that is the case, but year-to-date numbers better. 394,129 and a budget of 349. It's positive $45,000 over the budget. And again, over last year, better number, 28,567. And last year, from what I remember, was a strong year for the garage and people coming back to the area. For monthly, 82,635 on a budget of 80,000. That's positive 2,635, but down over last year, 892. Not a huge loss. Again, compared to last year when we lost all those accounts, that's a pretty good rebound. Year-to-date, 703,770 on a budget of 710. Down over budget, 6,230, but over prior year, 26,626. So that's the first time in positive numbers from last year. It was a big loss there. So that's positive. Again, you look at the special event, 6,240 on a budget of 3,500. That's $2,700 over. So again, the events that you guys have there are very strong, brings a lot of people in, which is awesome. If you look at the combined number for the month, transit 105,800 on a budget of 95,000. It's positive 10,800, and again, it's $1,200.71 over last year. Year to date, 866,550 on a budget of 791. That's a positive 75,000 over budget, but again, a big number, 46,651 over last year. Special event, 10,150 on a budget of 7,000. It's positive 3,150. And if you look at year to date against 10,150, the variance over last year, prior year says 10,150. That's just because we didn't budget it last. So overall, though, positive as far as the numbers go. So the trend is going well. Hoping with the weather, with the next two events we have with the Halloween party and then the Christmas event, should bring a lot of business. And I believe these numbers should all be positive by year end. So that's okay. Any questions for me?
The special event for this past weekend, did you calculate?
I didn't yet. I can
Okay.
get that information.
Yeah, I just wonder how,
Yeah.
because there was a give back in that portion of it. I was just curious. All right, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. There was one for Bicentennial. I don't know about Chestnut. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Look at the numbers. Bicentennial, look at the space count, 371 compared to 689. Bicentennial turns.
Yeah.
Put those numbers, that garage is constantly turning, which is good. That's
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you. Go Phillies, right?
And now the director's report.
Hello. Let's see, I do have an update, and I'm sorry to add this kind of last minute. This was in the director's report. The county, we've been playing phone tag. The solicitors have been going back and forth. They had originally asked for extended hours because we are changing Lot 6, the Gay Street lot, to paid after 5 p.m. And they have some employees that stay later. And they were concerned about how to figure out the management of it. So originally, the ask was to create a new lease that extended the lease spaces until 8 p.m. But they did finally get back to me on Friday evening and asked, they only need accommodations for 20 spaces at that lot until 7 p.m. The lease is supposed to start October 31st. So I can put it on next month's agenda, or I can put it on work session with a modified lease, depending on how you feel about that. I don't see it being a huge problem with signage there, but it would help them facilitate their parking. But again, I know that that's like a last minute ask. So do you want me to put it on next month or work session?
I'm good with work session. Is it 20 spaces?
So they have 79, but only 20 need the accommodation, and we can just do that really with the license plate. So it would be with their permit on their car, and we wouldn't have to change signage or anything.
I'm like, can't you just do the license plate and not do?
Yes. So
But,
it really won't affect the operations there, and it might not even be 20 at every time. So I figure it's a easy ask if I can accommodate. Is everybody comfortable with putting that on work session? Is that okay to do? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
The only question I have is the cars, they won't be coming and leaving. The cars that are there will be there from like 12 till 8 at night, I guess. So, and they won't, so we don't lose. The
Right.
resident comes in and takes the spots.
Right.
On, let's say a Friday or Thursday, the county still has it, but they're just a carryover of coming in at 12 to 8 or something like that.
Right. So if they have that special permit after 5 PM, they won't be ticketed, but a county employee that doesn't have that accommodation on their license plate, they would get ticketed for staying there without paying because we want to free up that space for transient parking or for residents to
That's what I
use.
was curious about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The bike locker upgrades have been approved. I do have the purchase order in with finance. So, if you've been to lot 10, the Chestnut Street lot, you would see that the signs have been moved. So all of the lease spaces are now on the east side of the lot. We actually have a nice couple of spots at the front that would be ideal to split half of the bike lockers and put there so that visitors in town would be able to come in, get the app on their phone, park their bikes in there and then go hang out in town. So I was hoping that everybody would be agreeable to moving half of the bike lockers to 2 spaces in Chestnut Street.
Please do this.
Okay. Good. Okay. Chestnut Street line, the signs have been moved. It does look better. I'm keeping an eye out because I'm hoping that lot starts filling up more. But it at least looks much better. Malcolm Johnstone, who was here last month, he was permitted to park his moving van. I believe that was, I think I saw it last night. And I did coordinate, police were really helpful with that. So in these situations moving forward, we'll now have residents coordinate those traffic situations with police instead of parking, since I don't have any control over that. The garage management RFP was released on September 27th. Responses are due back October 28th. We have the current management agreement, I believe, expires at the end of November. It does have a clause that we can go month to month. So I think that we will have to engage for a month to get through to the end of the year, just based on the timeline of the RFP. I did have the questions for the RFP were due Monday. I did have 2 companies respond to that. Those answers posted tomorrow. And then eventually we'll bring them in for interviews and come to council for approval, or parking committee and then council. Wayfinding project, we did a very thorough walkthrough of the entire borough to determine the placement of the signs. And then we proofed them with Merge. Public Works was there to help. We're going to need help installing the lighting there's electric for the 2 garages. The signs look really awesome. Part of this project will also include the removal of all of the yellow and blue signs in town that give directions to different places. So that is something that as we move forward, we will replace those with the same theme and schematics of the new wayfinding signs. So those will come down. So if you hear feedback about that, eventually we can replace them, but there weren't that many. It was a lot of the circle and Ps. I think there's a couple in town that already fell down and there's like a post sitting there. So I'm very excited about this. This is just a little side note, but we had conversations I think it was here, about communication to residents about different, tree trimming or whatnot. So we did modify our tow away parking, no parking signs, so that there will be an area so that when we'll print a label on there and it'll say special event, tree trimming, construction zone. So that way people have a little bit more information as to why they're not able to park in certain areas, which hopefully will help cut down on some of your emails and help facilitate more communication. And then we are going to start, because all signs need to be posted at the beginning, the end, and the middle of the block, we're going to get away from posting every single space on a block with block signs. So they'll be posted at the beginning and the middle, consistent with all other regulatory signage. So where you see the permit areas, that's where we'll put tow away zone and the logistics, and then we'll put one in the middle and at the end. I'm hoping that that's enough. It says on this block, but I just want to warn everyone because I know people are really used to seeing it every 15 millimeters. So, guest passes are available for homeowners and renters. We do have a Calendly link on our website if you could set up an appointment, because we are still getting permit applications in daily. I cleared them out today and then 8 more came in. So it just helps us service everyone better. In the Public Arts Commission MAP project, we met I think it was last week, and there was an artist chosen. So we're going to work with the Public Arts Commission will work with that artist to do a little revision period. And then we should have a really cute, cool parking map to share with the local businesses and, visitors on where to park at our lots. Revenue for September. We had $117,100 in ticket revenue, $5,977 in posting revenue, $3,198 in lease revenue, $161,584 in meter revenue. Permit revenue was $10,826, so it's going down a little bit. Booting, $1,100 and $300 in food trucks with a total of $300,085. I just drove down to campus and there were so many food trucks there. I did not realize they were all there at the same time. So that's,
Thank you very much. I do want to bring something up that was brought to me and has been brought to me repeatedly. The storage spaces inside the garages.
Yeah.
Can we do anything?
so I've actually been talking with Public Works and we're working on measuring them to at least get mesh, like the stuff that you'll put on fences because I feel the same way. So yes, and Public Works has been amazing about cleaning it out and helping, but it's every time we do, something else gets dumped in there. So yes, we are working on that and I think we'll have something done. But they've also, I forgot to update that. They've been really great about pouring the pads for the kiosks. So I've been annoying them with that. That's on the to-do list. Thank you.
No, I have noticed the signage for the tree trimming, and I think it's good. Like just a little bit more communication is appreciated, and I am very grateful for that.
Yeah, I think I'm excited. I think it'll help. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one question about the wayfinding signs.
Yes.
The existing poles that we have that are painted yellow, are we replacing the signs back pretty much in the same spots?
Not really. They'll be nearby, but probably better locations or different sides of the street. So those yellow posts will come out. So we're going to coordinate in the next month on the construction schedule, and Public Works will be taking out all of the old signage at the same time that the new signs go in. If you walk town, you should see little white marks with numbers, and those are where the signs are going. So they've been marked.
Yeah, because the last time that we got the yellow and blue signs, the vendor did a very poor job with the painting of them.
Oh,
Yeah, and I was hoping that we were changing the posts as much as we're changing the signs.
yeah. This will actually not be so blue and yellow. It's more of a blue and gold. So those yellow won't match anyway.
Very good.
Yeah.
So we can recycle them and get some money for them, because I believe they're aluminum.
If they are, then I'll look into that.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Anderson said, that's Christmas money for the team.
Okay.
Okay. Is that everything? And we'll move on to old business. A motion to approve September 2024 Parking Committee meeting minutes. All right, we're good. Discuss extending residential parking zone to 330 North High Street, Andrew Hotel Law Office.
Yes, sorry that I put 313. That is 330. I did include the attached. That is probably what it was. Mr. Motel did provide documentation, which I did give to you all as attachments. I looked everywhere. I think that whatever the decision that was made in previous council meetings was never codified. It was never put into the ordinance, and he has been receiving permits in the past. There is a parking map up there so that you can see the D area where the property is located. I don't know if you want to speak to this at all. There is 2-hour parking on the front side of that property, but I'm open to suggestions here.
Well, I can give you some.
Well, we heard from you last time, but I'd like to hear from you again. Looking at the parking map, it appears to me that in front of the building, there's 2-hour park. If I'm incorrect, let me know. There's 2-hour parking in front of the building, right? And you have a designated spot that you've built into the property for your vehicle. And on Church Street and some of the other streets real close by, there's sufficient parking in that entire area that can be used by either your employees and clients. I know we want our clients to park right out front with the 2 hours, give them good service. So Ramsey, am I incorrect that looking at the map, there's sufficient of all-street parking, maybe a half a block away from the building?
So we're talking about area D up here. So those red lines are the permitted areas, and then everything without lines of a color are unpermitted. There's no permit required on there. So, and you're at the corner, right, of High and Biddle?
Yeah, looking at the vast availability of parking except immediate parking, I don't feel a need that we have to give parking permits for, because there's a plethora of parking within a half a block of the building.
Do you have tenants in there, or is it solely office space?
My law office is on the first floor, and I currently have 2 apartments.
Okay.
And that door and the door to the back part of my office are on Fifth Street. I can address this. This is a bit of a deja vu for me because in 2006, I had this discussion
Can you come to the microphone? Thank you.
with your predecessors here, Carolyn Comita and Holly Brown. And what happened, just by way of background, is there was no permit, there wasn't any Area D on that section of Biddle Street. It was open. My neighbors across the street, residents applied for and created an Area D for the north side of Biddle there. And it became a problem because on the day the street sweeper came through, they all shifted over to park on my side, and there were no parking spaces on my side of the street. And I never wanted to have the area extended to the other side of the street because at the time the courthouse was where the old courthouse, and I knew all the guys that worked in the sheriff's department, and I know what they make, didn't make anything. So they didn't have to pay the fee, and they parked there on that side of the street. But it kind of forced my hand because now that side of the street, the residents on the other side would move over when the street sweeper came through. I couldn't in the first year I did get a permit, but then I was denied permits for the other side of the street because they said, you're not a resident. So I brought my issues to the parking subcommittee and I said, look, my request was that I be allowed to purchase, my tenants get residential permits and my law office get permits for my employees and 3 guest passes. And what happened is I went to the hearing and Holly Brown suggested or asked, will you put in a parking space on the rear of your property, which I understand is a net gain, adding a space. And I did so. And the deal was, the trade-off, the quid pro quo, was on the strength of that space that you're looking at there, which cost me $2,500. It's fine, I put it in. And thereafter, every year, the office was issued 3 guest passes, and my employees, which is now 1, could get a permit. I see in the ordinance, the book every year had a little notation in ink that said 330 North High Street gets permits. And I guess the ordinances, they extended, the borough council's decision was to extend the residential Area D to my side of the street. I wasn't asking for that. I was asking for the ability simply to have permits so that on those days when we had the shift, I could park on the other side of the street. So now the residential was put on my side of the street. And if I'm not allowed to purchase permits there, I'm worse off than when I started in 2006 applying for permits. So I thought this was a done deal. This was a fait accompli. And now it's being brought up again. And this year they wouldn't issue permits. The 2-hour parking on High Street, yes, but oftentimes I have clients there that are longer than that. It's not always, it's not always entirely safe to park on High Street. So I've had clients have their mirrors clipped off, which I'm sure is not unique to my office. And the parking on Church Street, I don't know if about a plethora, but there's parking on Church Street. Sending clients up there or sending them somewhere else seems to me to be unnecessary, and it seems to be off the table because we already had this deal. There's my part of the bargain. Washington Square can't purchase permits. They have their own parking out front. So you're basically looking at from High Street on Biddle, from High Street over to Church Street. When they extended Area D to my side, I'm the only building on that side other than Washington Square. And now I'm in a worse position than if they kept it to Area D on the other side. I didn't want permit parking there in the first place, but the neighbors forced my hand as I described, and I put it in the letter. So, I take this issue seriously. You know my position. For 18 years, we've purchased and been issuing permits there. It hasn't been a problem. I don't see any of my neighbors here tonight complaining that there's a problem, that they can't get spots. So this is a remedy for a problem that doesn't exist. So I'd just like to go back to where it was, and the borough honor its part of the deal and issue permits for my employees and 3 guest passes for my clients. That's where I am.
So for me, this is about precedent, right? It's not just about your building. I understand there's some history there and you're operating a business and you're the only business and you're the only building other than Washington Square on that block, on that side of the street. So my concern, Ms. Reiner, is the precedent, right, that we set for other businesses or other requests for permits and having a standard process. History aside, and the minutes that have been provided, et cetera. Just when we're trying to have consistency in the parking program, what does this do?
This is a funny situation because the permitted area is so small.
Sure.
Sorry. I will say we do have a few non-residential properties in other permitted areas, and non-residential permits are not allowed to park overnight, so they extinguish at 8 p.m., which is something that you could do in this situation. And we ask that all employees provide a pay stub when they get a permit. So there is a way to manage it. We are at this point, every property in the borough, aside from rooming houses, has been allowed to be issued 2 guest passes. So I think that would, with the 2-hour parking, I don't know if that would be a fair accommodation to reduce it to 2, but we do have a way to manage this so that residents can come home at night. I do think we need to tighten up the procedure and put it in a more finite, maybe like non-residential area of our ordinance or a resolution so that we list these properties by address. That way, when they switch, they're not grandfathered in. But we do have some like this in other areas, and they get non-residential permits so that they don't park all night and live there.
I can address a bit precedent. The precedent issue, I think, has to be looked at. Well, I understand business, residential, non-residential. I can understand the distinction. But I think the precedent has to be examined in context. Factually, the situation with my building where there weren't any off-street parking spaces and I put in the space, and in exchange, the borough we started issuing permits, and the existence of Washington Square and the absence of any discernible issue with residents complaining that they can't get spaces. When I last came in front of the parking subcommittee, my neighbors were there and they were happy to hear I was going to put in a parking space across the street. And again, It's not been an issue since then. So I think context, you have to add that context, and then I don't think you have a precedent which hangs you up in other situations.
I think that's nonsense. These precedences are extremely important. We have to set things as firmly as we can and as structured as we can so that we're not in this situation. We can't be going back to minutes from 18 years ago for each and every person. There needs to be something written that we can follow. And I hear your history, and I hear that that's upsetting, but we need to set standards that can be applied to the whole borough as much as possible and not pick addresses out and be backtracking on these issues. We have worked for months on leases with builders that don't exist, that are not written down, that are not codified, and it's extremely cumbersome. So just know that this is extremely important because it involves not just you. There's other people, and there's a whole borough, and there's more and more people coming, and we need to set this so that you don't have this situation in 18 more years. That's all.
I didn't expect to have it again after 2006.
It's not written down, and
Oh, okay. I don't have records of I would have my own testimony, that I put in the space, that I paid the money to put in the space, and that was the bargain for exchange. I hope we can resolve this. I'm not trying to be a problem. I've been a good resident. The building was kind of blighted when I got it in 1995. I put a lot into it, and
I am absolutely sure that you did a wonderful job. That's a wonderful little parking spot. I'm happy for all the things that you have done. I'm just saying that what we're trying to do is set precedents so that this does not happen again.
of my own temperature, I've been on it, so I understand the idea of uniform treatment. I do. So that's not lost.
Thank you.
Just saying context here is a little bit different, and I thought it was a done deal, so. That's it. And I'll answer any questions you have.
As far as I'm concerned, as I mentioned earlier, your employees can walk around the block and park on Church Street if they need to. And as Ms. Vaccaro mentioned, we've been cleaning up a lot of things that have been done on a handshake over the past 25 years. And it's not been comfortable for us as well as for the people that didn't actually get what they expected. So in my opinion,
I think it was a bit more than handshakes.
well, you can pick my words all you want, but my answer is still no. My answer is still no. I'm finished. Thank you.
I understand that.
My answer is not necessarily no. I just want this set officially. I want this done in a not in a manner that you had some deal. Like, I want you to stop talking about some deal that you made 20 years ago.
I followed the direction of the parking subcommittee, and permits were thereafter issued. There wasn't a smoky back room, and there wasn't a handshake and a clap on the back. It was a structured process.
I want something official that we are following, not an arrangement due to some agreement or however you want to word what you had. I want this to follow a structure that is going to be consistent moving forward. That is, I'm going to put that on Ramsey. I want this done officially and properly and consistently across the borough. I don't want this applied to this one building. Does that work? Can that work?
If you're all in agreement, then this would have to be we would have to modify the resolution and put before council. So you would have to modify the Area D resolution, which would make it official.
And just to be clear, going back to the standardization, we're doing this in other parking permitted areas of the borough. This is not necessarily an exception. It is a standard that we're setting. Correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I understand where Mr. Motel is coming from because I think there was an assumption that this was codified, that it was put in the ordinance, which is why I wanted it, whatever we determine here needs to be put into writing. Ultimately it's your decision and I can give suggestions depending on how the three of you feel. I know Bernie.
I'm completely open to doing something that can be applied across the board.
Yeah, I would support it as long as it's a standard, right, that we're applying across the borough. It is not something that we're making an exception for.
Okay. Then I would suggest that we could include this in I can modify the resolution to include this property as a non-residential property with a maximum, well, you need non-residential and you need tenant also, right?
Yeah. Yeah, tenants.
Are there two in each apartment?
There's one car in each apartment.
Okay, so we could flesh it out and you have one employee other than yourself? Okay, so we could say one non-residential permit, two residential permits, and then two guest passes. Well, usually each apartment would get two guest passes. And then could you live with one guest pass since you have 2-hour parking? Since that would technically be 5 for the whole property, which is a lot. If we split it by units.
I'm thinking of situations when I do depositions. I have a person come in, I have the court reporter, I have the other time. They're infrequent. Maybe 3 times a month. So, one for my employee, that I don't anticipate having another employee. Whatever my tenants' needs are. I can't anticipate that because year to year changes.
Okay.
So I have 2 people in the apartment in front, and sometimes they both have cars. Currently, they just have one.
But
Okay.
again, what is the standard for the borough, right?
Well,
You could have 4 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. Are
Yeah.
we issuing 8
Yes.
parking passes?
yes.
Well, maybe that's
unless
something we
it's-
need to revisit.
It is.
We absolutely need to
Yes,
revisit that, but
the
that's not your
2025
problem.
Conversation. But we can include it in the resolution and then 2 permits or guest passes. Okay. Including the office. 2 guest passes per unit. So 6 total? Right. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Motel, is that we didn't kill it? I think there's still some work to do, but again, I think Ms. Vaccaro and I are aligned in that we just need to set standards, right?
Right.
Whether it's your property or a property across town that's in a similar situation, we need to treat them equally.
And we need businesses to be able to function in our borough. That's
Right.
extremely important to me, but we can't, I don't want to see us nitpicking over each and every address.
Right.
I just think that's ridiculous. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, right now it is kind of a free for all with parking unless you're a student rental. So
So do that too. Mhm.
So do you want me to put this on next month for more discussion, or do you want to include it in the resolution? Because I don't think we're going to standardize parking in the next month, I'm trying. It's what I think. I sleep and eat and dream about parking, but I would say this, I think there's an opportunity here that we could include it in the resolution. We can allow him to have the parking permits, but we can all work under the assumption that we are going to be making some changes in the next year to the permit program that might affect the way that you're operating and that, you know, the number of passes in general are going to be given and that we just go from there. Does that work? Okay,
Yes.
I will work on the resolution then. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Motion to draft solicitor to revise ordinance 10445 with updated handicap parking list.
So this was crazy. I mean, we have been going, we've sent letters, we've posted the signs twice, we've had a lot of great contact from residents. So I am pretty confident that we have an accurate list that I've provided on who to add and what spaces to remove. The way our ordinance is written now, it is all of the special purpose parking zones are in one. So there's also a section that we need to move to a different section because there's motor coach parking and Westchester University vehicles. And because we ticket different fines for handicap, I would like to move them to a separate area of the ordinance and work with the solicitor on this. But there were quite a few of, there's like a page, 2 pages of parking spaces to remove. A lot of them had no response from the letter and 2 postings. Some of these, I would say a quarter of these also have already been removed physically and they're just living in the ordinance. So I would like to work on modifying the ordinance with Kristen to clean up the sections. But while we do that, I looked at every single borough in Pennsylvania's ordinance on handicap parking. And I think that we should consider answering a few questions that might help us create a clearer policy on how we're doing this. So I wanted to know, right now we have them in our United Public Safety system, similar to a parking permit. So now anyone that's registered will get a reminder next year that they'll need to resubmit or be removed. But I think that this should be part of the ordinance that we would say how often it should be submitted, either annually or every 2 years, because we do have a lot of older residents that either move or pass away. So would everybody be comfortable with 1 year or 2 year?
I want 1.
Okay.
How much overhead is that for you? Like I was in the 2-year camp, but I
Yeah.
just want to understand how much work it is.
Well, it wouldn't be too bad because my last question is, should we have a deadline for this? Sean and I had talked when I first started here because we get these requests sporadically. And I think that if we determine that submissions need to come in January and June, we wouldn't do this because I think we've done this like 5 times. So it's not a ton of work. It's just like permits. And it's manageable. So annually isn't the end of the world.
Okay.
I think I'd feel comfortable doing that because we'd know what our number is out there. What do you say? 1 year? Okay. Some of the ordinances that I reviewed consider off-street parking. And if you have accessible off-street parking, you're ineligible for a permit. Is that something you would like included in the?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. They also mention whether the disability needs to be permanent or not. And I don't want to get into, I don't want medical records. I don't think we need to get that detailed about it, but I know that some people come with like the red placard instead, which I think is temporary. Do you want to make it, because this is a lot of work. It takes, up to 3 to 4 months to get this done. Do you want to just make it that it's a permanent disability?
Yes.
Okay. And then do you want a cost associated with this? I would say you don't need one. I just wanted to mention it because some places charge between $10 and $100.
Can we revisit the permanent disability?
yes.
Sorry. if there is a, partial disability or, you're in rehab, you've been in a accident, you've had major surgery, you only need it for 6 months or maybe you only need it for a year.
Mhm.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't do that versus making someone, right, walk with an oxygen tank around a block to get?
Yeah. The only reason I would say is that it takes a long time to get this done. So by the time, if it's 6 months, by the time we get it done, there might only be 2 months of.
But do we do it or does the state do it? The state gives them the placard,
They do
right?
the disability, but for us to put the sign in and codify it into the ordinance to then enforce for it, it takes us, soup to nuts, like 4 months almost. So,
Why does that take so long?
because we have to present it, we will present the spaces here and then we have to advertise, we have to amend the ordinance, advertise, and then go have the hearing. And then it takes 30 days after the hearing for it to be enforceable. It's government. There might be other opportunities for temporary situations. I don't know them. I just know, I asked Kristen if there was an opportunity that we could make by resolution, because I thought then we could, modify these so much easier. But she said that state law requires that we list it in our ordinance. But there might be another way. I mean, we could just say, no, it doesn't need to be permanent, and then just see what happens also. Want to do that?
I'm going to tell you, I have a neighbor who has a handicap spot who I also have teenage sons who have friends visit who are not the brightest and don't understand, street signs. So they will park in his spot, not for 5 minutes. I had a mom once drop a son off and my neighbor comes running out of his house screaming, saying, "Get off my property. That's my spot. I'm calling the police." And I'm like, just call the police. If it's like, they're going to be gone in 5 minutes. I know that there are people who truly need this, and it's really important to give this to them. But I also know that some of the people who have it have some really bizarre ideas about it. And it makes me nervous extending this too easily.
So that's one example, right? I would hope that that's not by and large, the
Yeah.
common practice. And someone who's, had surgery or in rehab, I want them to suffer because we've got some nutcase across town who, thinks that they've been deeded that for life.
Right. Well, we can also reserve the right to remove it if we have suspected abuse or, concerns about it. But we can just leave it open to application and review and understanding. And
Other than the example that Ms. Vaccaro, has it been a problem?
we had a lot of people that don't drive that we left a few in here because I wanted to err on the side of caution and understand. We have a lot of caregivers that are driving other people around and they both live at the property. And in those instances, internally decided that right now was not something we wanted to modify because they are in use. And we just wanted to make sure that we had what's in use. We do have one person who keeps extending theirs to make it double long so that they can park extra cars there. But having worked here for almost 2 years, I always think about the worst case scenarios, but I'm trying not to. I can plan for them, but I'm gonna hope that nobody's really abusing it. And we did talk to a bunch of people that admitted that they didn't drive and this was for their kids to visit and those were removed. So I think we got a good baseline and we can move forward with as long as we have a good policy, I think we can stand by that. So permanent or temporary is fine. And then they can just not renew the next year and we'll modify it based on that.
I'm okay with that.
And then last question, do we want to do this? Do you care if we do it January and June or just January or just June? Okay.
I interrupted you when you were asking about a cost.
Oh, yes. So I was saying some places do charge anywhere between $10 and $100. I don't, because these, even though a resident can apply for these parking spaces, it does not belong to them. So anyone can park in it. So I'm a little leery of charging somebody for something that's really publicly available to anyone. But there is also a cost associated with the modification. But again, if we do it in a more methodical way, I don't think it'll be as costly as it has been this year.
I think this is a service that we need to provide and not something that we should be charging for, because I do think the ownership element is not real. And I'm like, no, I think the people who need this and we need to give it to them.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for so many questions.
All right. Then we'll move on to new business. We already did A. B is a motion to approve the purchase of one automobile license plate reader in the amount of $62,420.
Yes, so originally we have this in the capital budget. Originally, I was hoping to get two, but I was using 2023 numbers, which I guess weren't normal. So it went from 45,000 to 62,000. To get to it would have been 107, and I'm trying to be thrifty here. So just one for now. If I do think it will really enhance, especially night shift with the permitted areas. So I think it'll be a positive asset for the department. And if we decide that it's, you know, we recoup our expenses, we can always look into getting another one down the road.
I'm okay with this. Any other business? Seeing none, we can adjourn.